All right. Okay, welcome everyone again. We are ready to get started. Professor Hayden, I'll just hand over to you. Prof. Hayden?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, sorry, Rose, can you unmute the other one?
Yes, are you ready now, Prof? Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Could you unmute the other Hayden Noel?
Oh, okay, yes. Hold on. I have to find the other Hayden Noel. Yes.
And allow me to share my screen.
Yes. There we go. I'm not sure.
Hi, Rose. Please, you need to make him a co-host. Then he can be able to do that.
Yes, I get that. But I think there's two of him. Hold on. I made the wrong one. There we go. So, Prof, you should be able to share. You should be able to share your screen now. Are you able to?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Let me just get this thing together. So I apologize, folks. I just had to drive from my house to my office because we had an internet outage in my neighborhood, the whole neighborhood. So before we begin, I would like to ask you a favor. There are rules of the road. One of the rules of the road for me is that as long as you're internet able, I would like you to show your screen, please, to unblock your video. That way I will see how engaged you are. I will see if you understand what I'm saying. I'll see if I'm reaching you. So I'd love to see you so that we can better communicate. Okay? So please. Okay, I see Nana and Heather and Kafui. If we could see you, that would be wonderful. Okay, wonderful. I'm seeing everyone here now. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get, I'm sharing my screen. So we should be ready in a minute. So I actually had a mishap where, as I said, we didn't have internet. So I'm now pulling everything together. I apologize. I came into the office and there's actually almost no one here. So 1 second. Okay, wonderful. All right, so let's begin. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Can you see this? Rose, can you see?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's move forward. First of all, as I said, I'd love to see you, and this is about the new normal in the age of COVID. How do we teach? How do you interact with students? What are the challenges we should face? So let me ask you a question. As I said, challenges in switching to online. We'll also talk about engagement in the classroom. And I have this framework that I use called the 3 C's of online learning. Let me ask you a question. And Rose, could you allow them to go in the chat if they could? Has anyone ever heard of Mandla Masiko? Mandla Masiko. Mandla, anyone? A South African? Mandla Masiko. I can't see the chat, so I'll depend on Rose to let me know. Anyway, Mandla was a young South African, and he won a chance to be the first Black African to go into space. He died in a motorbike crash, but he actually beat 1 million other contenders to go. So imagine you're Mandla, and you're going to the Axe Apollo Space Academy to learn how to do this. But before you go, someone calls you and says, hey, you're going into space next week. You say, well, where's my equipment? Say, well, your clothes you have on should be fine. And then you say, well, what about training? They say, well, watch a couple of YouTube videos. You should be good. You should be great. That is how some of the instructors in our program here at the University of Illinois describe the switch to online learning. Like going into space with no equipment and no training. So it really was a challenging move for most of them. I'm sure some of you could identify, right? And we'll talk about that as we move forward. Now, let me ask you a question. We have a poll question for you. Rose, can you post the poll question, please? And the poll question should be coming up shortly, I believe. And if my internet were not out, we'd have run through this 20 minutes prior, so it would have been seamless. Rose, do you have the poll question?
Yes, I'm putting on one. Just give me 1 minute, Hayden.
Oh, okay.
I was muted.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, I think everyone should see the poll now.
Okay. Blended means a mix of online and face-to-face. Could you select one of these options, please? Host and panelists cannot vote, so could folks here please vote? So click on one of these. Are you getting a chance to vote? Okay, I'm not seeing the voting. Heather, did you try to vote? Did you click, Heather?
Yes, I voting. Hey,
I did. I voted.
Yes, it's
Okay.
happening. Should I end it now? It's been a minute, 10 seconds. Okay. All right. Should I share the results?
Yes, yes, I need to see it. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. This is surprising. It's interesting. 70% of students actually said they prefer in-person classes, and the number is much higher for faculty. All right. Faculty, 75% of faculty prefer in-person or face-to-face. Very few people actually chose blended. It was a small number. But interestingly enough, and I see a lot of young people here, younger than I am. I'm 56. So you look young to me. I apologize. But student numbers drop as they age, and faculty numbers. so it's the same for faculty now. So when I say student numbers drop, more students actually prefer. I'm hearing someone's mic on. Okay, thank you. More students actually prefer online classes as they age, as they go up from 20 to 25 to 30 to 35. All right? Heather, why do you think that is? Heather Beam. Why, when people move from high school to college, then to grad school, they start preferring online classes? The number drops. Why, Heather?
Maybe because online gives you more of the opportunity to control your learning experience in terms of pace and mode and all that. So maybe as you get older, you desire more of that.
That is true. The other part of that is, good job, Heather, good job. The other part of that is when you're controlling your environment, when you're controlling the experience, you actually can continue working. You can continue being married happily. You don't have to leave your family for days and hours on end to go work on projects over the weekend at Ashesi or wherever you're going. You actually control more of the environment, but you control the pace and the timing. So you're able to continue with your regular life. All right. Rose, I see someone has a hand up, but you can chat with them. Maybe we could take questions later on. We will in about 20 minutes or so. We will be taking questions. All right. So let's continue. So with regard to education, COVID has had multiple impacts, this pandemic. We've been going through a lot here in the US with the George Floyd protests, and people have seen this, they've forgotten about COVID to some extent. But how has it impacted us? I call it 3 T's: tools, the equipment you need, technology, as I found out this morning with my internet outage in my home. So I was kind of running behind. And what I call therapy. 50% of faculty have reported that they have been sent into space without a suit and they had to watch a YouTube video to be trained. You know? So they weren't trained. They weren't ready. So they're stressed. Parents are stressed out. Some of them are now learning what it is to teach and coach their children, and the students are very stressed. So I'll touch on this briefly before I go into making our presentations and so on, and teaching more engaging and more interactive. Tools. As you know, there's a huge digital divide. It is estimated that in some countries, especially in developing countries and countries like Ghana, that individuals who are poorer are much less likely to have their own computer. And also if they have one, sometimes it's shared with the entire household. So that's a very distinct problem, especially for countries like Trinidad and Tobago, where I'm from, and Ghana. We also have one issue, a challenge in curriculum design. A lot of us were professors. I'm a professor myself. We were not ready, some of us, to make that transition. Some of our assignments were not tailored to the online environment. I use cases, Harvard Business School cases. And those cases require a lot of interaction. I'd be calling on Heather, on Dicko, on Millicent. I'd be calling on you quick fire. But I can't do that using this method as well. And Dicko disappeared. I don't know what happened with Dicko. Dicko, I want to see you. And lovely, Dicko, lovely. Thank you so much. So I had to change the curriculum. I had to change the format very quickly to respond to COVID pandemic. Technology, internet access. Internet penetration is fairly high in the US, but in a lot of other countries, penetration is not as great, and people have to use data packages. Okay, for instance, you know, in Ghana and in other African countries, there are people who they don't have internet where they can use their computers, they have to use their phones. So that's a challenge. Additionally, the inadequacy surrounding repairing your tools, your computers, etc., and fixing things like connectivity issues. We weren't trained for that. So even if you're given a computer by your school or your institution, it's very difficult sometimes, right? Finally, therapy. I spoke to you about the stress that people undergo when they are during this pandemic. And it's for multiple reasons. One of the things we have seen is that women actually are going through much more stress, female students, than men. And I'll just touch on that briefly and move forward. There's this thing called the summer slide. Okay, what happens during summer? Students who are doing math courses, when they come back out, when they leave in May and they come back later in the year, whenever there's a break, if they are doing courses that are building on what they've learned, they actually have lost some of that knowledge because they haven't been practicing. Usually it ranges between 30 and 50% for math-based subjects and 20% for English or qualitative subjects, I should say. The numbers, though, tend to be in this, and then there are people who just don't come back. The numbers and the strain and the stress placed on women, though, is a bit greater. Studies have shown that women are more likely to drop out of school during a time like COVID because they're forced to do other things when they're at home. All right, men do too, but women are sometimes, especially in the African diaspora, they are more likely to be impacted by this. So that's additional stress. Excuse me. I don't have COVID. I just need a drink. So there are some short-term and medium to long-term solutions. I'll touch on them briefly because I need to get going with the rest of my presentation. You know, we had a delay. With regard to the tools, there are different things we can do. We can, of course, encourage our students to use their phones, all right? But some institutions are also partnering with businesses to loan out computers or have computers available for students who are able to come in to use them. So that is one option. The other thing that some school districts and universities are doing We have seen it, for instance, in the US, in Arkansas, 23% of households in the state of Arkansas lack internet service. So what have they done? They've partnered with a local television station, a PBS affiliate, and they're providing daily television programming tied to the distance learning curriculum. So think about it. How can you have to be very creative. How can you actually partner with businesses, with television stations, so on, to provide some bandwidth? All right. Additionally, there's this challenge, of course, of students who don't have and still want to use the hard copies. They want physical material. So in South Dakota, some of the school districts actually have physical drop boxes at school entrances. So students can go and pick up their homework. They can pick up printed packets and so on. There's a cost, of course, to the school, the institution, but it helps with students who don't have computers. All right. So those are short-term solutions. In terms of technology, instead of using Zoom, you might look at using WhatsApp, etc. But of course, that limits some of the tools you can use or have in your arsenal to make it engaging. One of the things we also have looked at here is actually having students form a lot of WhatsApp groups where they work together and assist each other. Or we've formed tutoring hubs. So we ask senior students, PhD students, to make themselves available to do tutoring online for students who are having difficulty. So they sign up and they say, I'm able to tutor in these areas, and we match them with students. All right, let's move on. So these are just generally some ways we can tackle the education environment with COVID. Now, let's talk about specifically about teaching online. How do I teach online? What do I do? I'll divide this into two areas. First of all, synchronous learning. There's synchronous learning and asynchronous. What's synchronous learning? What we are doing now. Asynchronous, we've recorded videos. Students go watch it online, or we let them watch some YouTube videos and then come into class where we discuss ideas or we discuss assignments. So synchronous learning. There's Rose and Senna. Okay, there you are, you're starring. So I talk about the 3 C's of online learning. What are the 3 C's? First is communication, next connection, and finally, congratulations. Congratulations. Let's go through 3 of them. Let's go through them. Communication, and these are essential. These are essential to being successful in the online environment. First, communication. And when I talk about communication, I'm talking about enhancing engagement. Enhancing engagement. First of all, studies have shown that even in the online environment, energy, joy is infectious. Okay? So if you have a wonderful smile like Hannah, and I can't my glass off, Nutifafa, if you have that, share it. It actually, as I said, research shows it's contagious even in the online environment, all right? So if you're as studious and focused as Peter, I would say no, you need to share it. Otherwise, that spreads to your students. You see, Peter is feeding off of the positive energy, okay? So engagement is essential. Ask questions. I've already asked you questions during this presentation, but there are different ways to ask questions. You can ask questions either directly, or you can ask questions using polling software, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here we have Diko back with us again. Diko, you doing okay, Diko? Diko's hand is still up. Diko, thumbs up if you're doing okay. Diko isn't hearing me. I think Diko's gone again. Lost him. Okay, ask questions. I'll show you how to do some poll questions in a minute. Also, Zoom breakout rooms. One of the things you want to do is break up the monotony of the presentation, right? The presentation stuff, you just can't lecture throughout. So I am going to break this up very soon into different component parts, and you'll see. But you cannot just talk straight for 1 hour. The final thing about engagement is having a virtual office hour. It's essential to actually tell students you're available. It also lets them know you care. You know what are the two components of student evaluations in terms of a faculty member's effectiveness? Their knowledge and that they care. Two major components. How organized they are and so on, yes. So I know if you're evaluating me, you say, nah, at the beginning, for the first 10 minutes, this guy didn't know what he was doing. I didn't, because I had to come to my office, rush over here. Hopefully no cops pull me over to be with you because of the outage. But you should actually host an office hour and encourage students to come. Reward them for coming. Give them do something, a point, whatever, extra credit, but reward them. All right? So let's look at some of these. Breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are really useful because students actually have said, when asked, 90% of students, between 90 and 95% of students said they actually like to communicate with each other. I don't know who the 5% are who don't, but 95% of them actually say they are very, very satisfied during a session when they have breakout rooms. So you want to enhance satisfaction, you want to enhance learning. The students can teach each other. You don't have to do all the teaching. So we are going to have a sample breakout room here. And here's the question. What do you think is the best way to keep students engaged in the virtual classroom? Here are the rules. Remember your breakout room number. Each person in the room needs to present one idea. As a group, you select the best idea and appoint a speaker from your group. I'm not going to ask all groups, just one or two, but I want you to see what the room is like and how it's used, how it's utilized. You only have 5 minutes for the room. I'm sorry. So you have to be brief. You have to be brief. You have to be quick. All right. We have 32 participants. About 4 or 5 of us are actually administrators. So let's do 5 rooms with 5 participants each. Rose, could you put them in breakout rooms, please? Remember the question. What's the best way to keep students engaged in the virtual classroom? Remember your breakout room number. And please come back. We only have about 20, 25 minutes, and I want to hear your questions. Go.
All right.
Breakout rooms now. Rose, are you putting them in breakout rooms, or am I?
I am adding everyone.
Okay.
Is everyone in a room or?
Nope, they're not. You actually have to click and accept the invitation to the breakout room once you're put in there.
Assign. So we'll have how many people per room, Hayden?
5.
5.
You might have one room with less, but 5 people per room.
Okay.
Just accept to go to your room.
I think everyone should be in a breakout room by now.
Yeah, I'm leaving my breakout room because I am I was assigned, so I had to leave.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A reminder of the question again, please. Hayden, can you share on the screen here? We are back, Hayden.
Okay. Okay, so I am going to leave that meeting there. That's fine. Okay, wonderful. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Peter, Heather. Okay, wonderful. So let's start with group number 2. Well, actually, breakout room number 3. What was your best idea? Who was in breakout room number 3? You were supposed to remember your breakout room number. My students do this to me all the time. I will just call you at random then. Senna, go for number 4. Represent number 4, Senna. What was your idea?
Kaiser is speaking for us.
Oh, Kaiser, talk to me. You're on mute. Oh, she's on mute. Could someone?
Okay, now. Hello.
Yes.
Hi from Sweden. I'm Kajsa, and in our group we discussed various ways, but I think one way that you have used already is to use the names. Then you feel seen, and it's actually an advantage we have in the online classroom compared to the offline. The names are just down here, so we don't have to look in our brain database. We have it in front of us.
Remember the name.
Yes, to remember to use the names. Then we feel part of the lecture. Yeah.
Yes. You know what throws me off as well, Kaisa, when my students sit in different locations in the classroom. Because you know, when we encode information, we encode context as well as the person and the name. So the person next to whom they sit helps us remember the name. They switch around and I can't. Having the names here, you could sit wherever you want.
Yes.
I will remember your name. So that's true. That's correct. Okay. Let's see, group number 1. Who was in group number 1? Because if you don't have your camera on, we can't see you raise your hand or anything. Raise your hand so we could unmute you. You can raise your hand electronically, but we want to see you. Group number 1, where are you? Okay, who was in group number 1 who wants to speak? Raise your hand or show your camera so we can see you. All right, I'm just going to choose people. Al-Hassan, Sido, where were you? Which group number? Al-Hassan, talk to me, Al-Hassan. Unmute Al-Hassan for me, please.
Okay, done.
Al-Hassan. No, he's still, Al-Hassan Sido is still unmute. He's still muted, no?
Yes, I've unmuted him. He has to accept it.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
I have a very poor audio over here.
We can hear you.
I have a very poor audio over here. So
okay.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Honest. Well, okay. I actually was not paying much attention at when we switch over to the
breakout room.
The breakout rooms.
Okay. Well, all right. So we'll switch to someone else, Alassane. So pay attention next time. Peter, let's go. Thank you so much. Peter.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Just introduced by way of introduction, I'm a professor of political science at Davidson College in the US, but I work with a lot of professors in digital learning in Nigeria and Ghana as well. So just throwing that out. Hi, everyone.
I have friends who played soccer there. You had a great soccer team when I was growing up.
We're very good in that area. So a couple of ideas came up in our group that were really good. The first thing was breaking up lectures. So some of us are used to lecturing for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes or longer, but breaking that up into chunks and interspersing it with rich media such as videos, short videos, maybe 1 minute, 2 minute, not really long, but something that students can react to, engage with as well. So that was one idea. The second one was the breaking out in groups. But I think the thing that I would add to that, in addition to breakout rooms, is having the students, work in a Google Doc or some sort of collaborative document. So that way, when you come back from, the breakout rooms, you have something very tangible that you as a professor can use to assess, for example, participation. And that was one of the things we talked about in our group, that as professors in this environment, sometimes we have to move away from the almighty exam, mentality and assess in very in different ways than maybe we're accustomed to doing. And that one of those ways is participation.
Yeah, I like the idea of about breaking things up. An article in HBR by Justin Hale and Joseph Rennie talked about the 5-minute rule. And the 5-minute rule, they says, don't go 5 minutes without engaging the students in some way, giving them a problem to solve, calling on someone to answer a question, or giving them a poll or something. I always say when I read these things that there's context, right? So in a situation like this, where we have an hour, we try and get stuff in, I am breaking it up, but sometimes you aren't able to as quickly as 5 minutes. But as often as possible, as often as circumstances would allow, 100%, you actually should. There should be between a 5 to 8 minute rule. If you go on for 25 minutes talking, you're failed. You're failed. You've lost students by then. Look at them looking down, and they're not looking down at the keyboard, they're looking down at their phones. All right? So that's a great point. That's a great point. And also the point about assessment. I'll just take one more. Let's see who we shall take. Group number 4. You're 4, right? So let's do group number 5. Raise your hand if you're group number 5. Was that Philip? Philip, were you group number 5? Could you unmute Philip? No, he was 5. Philip, unmute him.
Peter and I were in the same group, so.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
All righty. Well, I don't see group number 5, so we'll have to move on, but thanks. This was just showing you a tool that you could use once you're using apps like, or software like Zoom. It's actually one way to be very engaging, very engaging. Now, another tool that I use is, and let me get to it. Okay, 1 second. All right, can you see this? Another tool that I use is polls. Peter, can you see this? Kaisha, okay, Philip, okay, wonderful, it's polls. And I use polls a lot for things like just icebreakers. If I'm presenting at a conference or presenting to you, what I would usually do, if I were here on time, would be at the beginning to set up a poll, say, well, where are you from? What country are you from? Or what town are you from? And have a word cloud. So you enter a word and it will pop up. So I'd see where you're from. Or I might have asked you, what do you do? Are you an educator? Are you a student? Are you an administrator? And be able just to engage the audience. So also sets the tone that this is what you expect. So if you're teaching a group of students, you can ask them what activity they engaged in over the weekend and let them enter that in on the chat. All right, as long as they keep it PG. But you set the guidelines, you set the rules regarding engagement. You also could do that in terms of decisions that you're making as a class, case discussions or reactions to cases. And finally, very importantly, knowledge checks. Knowledge checks by engaging students and asking them a question that actually tells them, you know what, I should pay attention for the rest of this class. So let's do a couple, not knowledge checks, but just a couple quick polls. I am going to use, there's free polling software out there. Actually, I'm using one called Slido, and faculty can use it for free for classes of up to 50 people. I forget the number, but there's a certain size. But you can use it. You have unlimited access until July 1st because of COVID. So let me bring it up for you. You actually use your phone to control it. Okay. Here it is. So if you have a phone, go to your phone, slido.com, and enter that code 9541. 9541. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Slido.com, and you'll enter that code, then select the response.
How do we spell Slido, Hayden?
It's right. Are you seeing it on the screen? Slido. Slido.com, and then enter the code 9541. Are you seeing the screen, by the way? Rose, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
For me, I see the engagement slide. I don't see.
Oh, okay. You're not seeing the Slido screen. Oh. I see. You know why? Because I was supposed to, when you're doing a share, you actually can share different things. So that's what I have to do. Oh, let me see how I'm going to do this.
I think you may have to end this share and then
then start again.
Share that one, yes.
Okay, stop share. Okay. All right, so I'm not seeing that because it switches. Let me see.
What was the code again? So SLIDO
9541.
9541. Perfect.
Yeah, 9541. Okay, and you're not seeing this one, right? So here's what I'm, okay, so I'm actually going to, can you see the results on your screen? Can you see the results on your phone?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So 87% of you were wrong and you chose Ghana. I've had jollof rice from Nigeria and it's actually very tasty. So basically, I'm sorry. I guess I'll have to taste it when I get there. But this is one way using a poll, slido.com. I'm going to give you another poll, right? Let me end that one. Let's do a word cloud. Now, again, 9541. All right. Are you seeing it? No, don't enter your word. Enter your word. Don't enter 9541. You're already here. Sorry, you're already here. So just which word comes to mind when you think of online teaching?
I have to share my screen. Share my screen.
All right, go ahead. Someone entered incomplete. Enter it again. Just type. One word comes to mind. Type some more. Okay. When you look at the result, wow, wait, I have to go back because this result is changing now. Internet, can you see internet? You develop a word cloud and internet is the word that comes to mind most frequently from the participants, all right? And that might just be 3 or 4, but the more people say internet, the larger it gets. Now, when I do word clouds, I don't share these word clouds during, oh, fun, wow. Is a word that comes to mind. I'm shocked. Fun is good. So when
okay, let me show. I can show this for you. If you just stop sharing your screen, I'll share it. I'll show it.
Oh no, but you can see it on your phone. They can see it on their phone. Okay. I shared the results, right? I shared the results. You can see it on your computer, on your phone. That is, you can see it on your phone. Okay, so fun, shaking my head, Moodle. Okay, so I wouldn't share this. I would not share this with my students while they're doing it, mainly because it would create some bias in the response. It creates some bias in the response, okay? So let's do one more. One more. On a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 is very unprepared and 7 is very prepared, how prepared were you to teach online? Wow, okay. So people felt somewhat, oh, no, they weren't really prepared. A 3.9 out of 7 is not good. Okay, let me show the result. So it's a 3.9, 3.9. So people did not really feel prepared, or 4.1 now. People did not really feel prepared for this. So let me end these polls. Again, Slido is free. Slido is free and you can use this, but there are also other free polling software that you can use, and I'd encourage you to use it because it does help, as Peter said, to break up the lesson into chunks. All right, there's this idea of chunking, which actually helps with memory. So it breaks it up into chunks. Okay, now the other thing that you should use is a chat. We haven't used the chat yet because we have a small group and we can actually talk. And sometimes you always have to have a chat monitor. Why? Because the chat a lot of times devolves into side conversations that you don't want. In our large IMBA class, we've actually had to instruct some people about different biases because we have made sexist comments on the chat. So you actually have to have someone policing the chat. But set those guidelines and use the chat. You can ask questions in the chat. Okay, could you tell me what position you hold at your university? Could you tell me what subject matter you teach? And we can actually see it. I use it with case discussions if I'm asking people questions. For instance, could you tell me what associations come to mind when you think of this brand name, let's say? All right, so the chat is very, very useful, very useful. So that was communication or engagement. I'll just touch briefly on connection. Introducing yourself is great, especially if you're now, it's an early class. But if you know the people, you can actually look for things that you have in common to talk about, or simply ask them what they did this past weekend. Peter said he was from Davidson. My telling Peter that, and it's intentional, but it's part of me by now. I had to learn how to do this. My telling him I know people who actually played soccer at Davidson creates a connection. Peter looks much more relaxed than he did an hour ago, right? But he does, and even if he might not admit it, he did feel somewhat of a connection there, but find areas of commonality that you have with students, right? The people in the group. Peter, did that help? Did it make sense what I just said? Yes? Good, wonderful, wonderful. Connection, something else we also do is I have a t-shirt night. So I ask people to wear t-shirt to represent where they came from. So that also helps us connect with each other. You might also ask them to wear a t-shirt from their favorite activity, recreational activity or sports team. But choose something that would not be too controversial and might be distracting. All right. So let's say if I lived and taught in London, I wouldn't ask them to wear a t-shirt with their favorite soccer team or football team, because football is someone might wear Arsenal, someone might wear Tottenham, teams that hate each other. You don't want to be distracting, right? Finally, congratulations. If someone says something that's great, you have to recognize them, and that encourages more participation. So I've tried to do that today, but that's something that I encourage you all to do, recognize. I actually, at the end of the semester, send out t-shirts that say Illinois Geese Business. I get it from the business school to students who have participated really well. That has become part of our institutional knowledge. So now students actually want to participate. So, hey, wow, we've come to the end. We have very little time left because we interspersed it with discussion and questions. But let's, for the short time we have, any questions? Just put your hand up and we'll get to them quickly. Peter. Unmute, could you unmute Peter, please? Yes, go ahead.
There we go. Yes, so my question is something that I've heard from a lot of professors. It's been a question I've been asked and I don't know how to answer it, which is, how do you deal with class sizes that are 100 plus or 150 plus? Obviously we got our small classes of maybe 30, 40 for some of the upper level classes, but a lot of classes at say University of Lagos, where we were talking to professors there, they say, well, how do we engage students using all these techniques with 150 plus? So I'm curious your thoughts.
That's a good question. And I want to show you a short video. I teach classes between 200 to 500 students, my live session, sometimes 300. And here's what I do. Studies show that emotion is contagious. Also, things like connection would also be contagious. So I select at the very beginning specific individuals I would like to connect with, and I spread that around from live session to live session. So I connect with different people at the beginning or during the class, because there are some people who always want to connect. Hey, me, look at me, sir, look at me. Ask me the question. You move to the other individual. That's one. So you move around. The other thing is, if you show empathy, like if I say, of course, Peter, that's a great question. I really love that question. That encourages Katja to ask a question as well. And it makes her feel comfortable, because if you ask that question, Peter, I said, what kind of dumb question is that? Turns out, well, not if I say it directly, but if my response is condescending or my response isn't welcoming or open, then the others feel left out. So you're not able to talk to everyone, but by sampling judiciously throughout the semester, people feel engaged. Also, asking people to communicate via the chat. So if I say, could you please list or tell me the attributes associated with something, they all post in the chat. I use the chat much more. They feel like they're part of the class, especially if I say, or my assistant reads out what they've posted. So you have to sample judiciously, connect with people. I want you to connect with a few. The others also feel connected, and research shows that because it's contagious. And also use other means. Use that, the chat feature, use polling much more so, use breakout rooms, use other ways to draw them in. The other thing I didn't talk about, which is important, is using asynchronous methods to actually bring them in as well. So your asynchronous and synchronous tools must be integrated. So you have to have things like discussion boards where you participate. And if someone, what I've done in the past, if someone hasn't participated much, I see they're posted online, I actually congratulate them in the live session. So they also feel like part of it. You will never reach everyone, but everyone will feel reached. Does that make sense, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
Good, good. I'll show you a short clip before we go. I know Rose wants to end the session, but Rose?
Yes, so what I said was we could go to 3:10. So that's
okay, wonderful, wonderful. That's a wonderful question, Peter. I'll show the video before we end. Actually, let me try and show it now. I have it up. If I could, let me stop this share and I'll show you how I'm teaching a very large class. All right, give me 1 minute. And again, that was a great question, Peter. And I really mean that too, by the way. Okay, here we go. This session had, I think, over 200 students. So let me go back and share my screen. Share screen. Here we go. Can you see the screen? Peter, you seeing? Katja, you seeing? Okay. I hope it shows. Last time we had a problem, it was a little jerky. Hello, and welcome from wherever in the world you are. One thing you know by now, you realize you are not going to be able to just sit back. You got excited.
Absolutely.
I do not believe in exams. It will be a collaborative event, something we do over time with others. And that's what we do in this class. I want you to put up your hands and tell me 2 associations from the case.
Tradition comes to mind.
Associated with a working man.
Also inexpensive and very accessible.
Always end my classes by saying, all of you, go out in the world and be successful. Okay. So basically, you see that list of words on the board? I had 2 boards like that, and that we engaged about, I would say, it was a class of 200 plus, about 50 to 100 students, 75 students in that class directly that day. All right. So find ways and means to engage multiple students using the methods I discussed. Does that answer you, Peter? Does that answer the question? Wonderful. Next question, please. Thank you. Put your hand up. Raise your hand, please, electronically. No one's asking questions. Either my presentation was perfect, which it was not, or you didn't understand the presentation. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Halberg.
Yes, it's Dr. Halberg, but I was inspired by the praise for Peter, so I also have a question. I was thinking about all the kind of technical disruptions, people forget to unmute, they disappear for a moment, their video freezes. If you have tips on how to deal with this for this not to just slow down and make everything boring and dull.
If it happens on the student side or the faculty side?
I mean, I think it happens on all the sides.
Yeah. When it happens on the faculty side, I just roll with it. It happened today.
Yeah.
Right? It happened today. So I started talking about the astronaut. I read about that astronaut some time ago, and I wasn't going to use it. I wanted to dive in, but I used the time while we were still fiddling with the technological issues. So I think we just have to be flexible, and think on your feet. That's one thing. We also have to be empathetic with students. Mm-hmm. Students are going to face these same issues. So if we want empathy from our peers, we have to be empathetic with students. We have to allow students to learn about the technology, make mistakes. They were sent out into space without a suit and just watch a YouTube video. That's what they had to do. Watch a YouTube video about this, how to learn, and you send a long email about how to go about it. So we have to be empathetic. I think we just have to be very flexible with it and make allowances for this to happen. And when it does, I sometimes have to go back and redo things that we missed out on, or the majority of the class missed out on. If I were teaching today in Champaign to students in Champaign, Illinois, 50% of them would not have internet. And they wouldn't be able to really enjoy the lecture on their phone. So I would redo part of it the next time. Yeah. Right? Does that answer?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
How do you pronounce your first name again? I just didn't want to pronounce it incorrectly.
Yes, it's Kaisa. It's a Swedish name. Also, shout outs to my former colleagues at Ashesi. Hi, everyone.
Okay, Kaisa.
Hi, Kaisa.
Okay, thank you so much. Next. Any questions? Go ahead, Kapul.
Yeah, I wanted to know from you if after your online session or online classroom tutorials, do you allow students to get in contact with you, probably give you a phone call and ask you some questions that they don't understand whilst we're doing the online tutorials?
The online live sessions?
Yes.
No, I don't share my number with students. I did that once and received a phone call at midnight about an assignment that was due at midnight. Really, I did. I got that call. Professor, where's the link to submit the assignment at my home? So I don't share my number, but I do go back to students and use the discussion board. So we interact, and I always try to seek feedback on how I could improve. So I have two things I have done. One is I use discussion boards to see what they don't understand, but I also have a student academic advisory board from each class that I teach. And I meet with them 2 to 3 times during the semester and ask them, what am I doing right? And what am I doing wrong? And you have to have tough skin to do that, right? Because we all think we are great, but we make mistakes. I make mistakes, you make mistakes. So we have to accept that. So I use both methods. One is more general and much more strategic and lets me know how I could change course. The other is simply if students don't understand a single concept, we use a discussion board. And I also encourage them to come to virtual office hours. I make myself available. All right. Okay, the final question. The final question. We have one more question. Any more questions? Okay, okay. Well, I think it's been an honor, I would say, for me to be part of this. I have done this in multiple places over the last 2 months. And I really am glad that you're empathetic with me, because the start of this thing threw me off a lot. And we had to, just moving from driving from my house to here, I actually sent Rose and the others a message from my car racing over here and being set up later than planned and all of that. So I apologize, but I thank you for your patience. And I hope that I know you will exhibit that same empathy and patience with your students who are not used to this, because that way they will be empathetic with you. And I'll end by saying, again, thank you for the opportunity, but I want you to do one thing today, one thing that will enhance your chances of success in your career, that will enhance your chance of success in your class, that will enhance your chance of success in whatever endeavor you are involved in. You can connect. That one thing is connect with each other. Go read an article about online education. Start reading a new book. Pick up a hobby. Do something that enhances your chance of success. And when I say pick up a hobby, we really need to have peace of mind right now. I actually started playing computerized chess. I haven't played chess in a long time, but I'm playing against my computer, and it's really relaxing for me. But do something that will enhance your chance of success. I'm Hayden. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you feel like, if you're so inclined. But I want to end by saying, as I always do, I want you all, each and every one of you, to go out in the world and be successful. Ciao. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Hayden.
Bye. See you, Peter, Kaful, Philip, Kaisa.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Senna, see you later. All right. Take care. So, Peter, hopefully we can connect. I want to hear some more about Davidson.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a note afterwards. I've got a few thoughts. I've been working on a lot of online education projects now, so we should talk.
Yeah. Okay.